Hey there, my name is Lindsay and I am a homeschool mom of two boys, a third grader and a kindergartner this year. And I just wanted to share, I thought it might be interesting to somebody, what we do as far as school in the car. Now this is not like our actual school time, which we do sometimes take in the car, our papers and math and all of that. But this is more of an enrichment that is kind of constantly going in the car. So it's essentially a bunch of playlists and podcasts, and it's a kind of a changing list, so I thought it might be interesting to share. So the first thing that we do, if you have seen any of my other videos, you probably know that I like loop scheduling. And so it's just a loop list that I kind of go through. The only thing that fluctuates is the very first item. So it is either a book of the Bible or an audiobook, and we'll kind of go back and forth between one or the other and then go through the whole list. So for example, right now we're reading 1 Kings or listening to 1 Kings. We'll listen to the whole book, go through the whole rest of the list, and then start the list over with an audiobook, and then go through the whole list, start the list over with a 2 Kings, go through the whole list, if that makes sense. I don't know why. The books just last a lot longer, so if I included both of them in my list, it would take a really long time to get through, so I just decided to make it one or the other. The Bible, we just started in Genesis. I heard somebody talking about one time a Bible binge instead of going through the Bible really, really slowly, which we do, like when I sit down with my kids during their Bible lessons. She was talking about how she and her family were trying to see how quickly they could get through the Bible, not just to get through it, but because sometimes when you break it up into small sections, you miss the story as a whole. And I was kind of inspired by that. And I thought, okay, we're not like gonna try and do that with the whole Bible, but it would be neat to take book by book and just listen to it in its entirety. Now, some books are a lot longer than others, and it might take us, a few days or a couple weeks to get through, just depending on how much time we're actually spending in the car at that time. But it has been pretty neat so far. It's cool to be studying the Bible really in depth and then to also listen to it at the same time. And I kind of take this own practice into my daily Bible study. I like to take little bits and pieces and study the Bible and then listen to larger pieces, because I don't tend to get as much out of listening, but it's cool to hear bits that I've studied more intentionally, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but in its entirety. So we do that, or we will be listening to an audiobook. And I have a list of books that I would like to get to with my kids. Anytime, basically, I hear a list of read-alouds recommended, I just add it to my list. I have it broken down by age so that I can easily see, just so that I can easily tell which books to pull from. And then I basically try and just see what books I can find on Hoopla or Libro or whatever I'm using at that point in time, whatever book streaming I'm using. So then after we have either finished the whole book of the Bible or finished the book or the book series, if it's a series, I don't break it up. We'll just keep listening to that series until all the books are done. Then we listen to our hymns playlist, and if you watched my family subjects video, it should be in there. I talked about a lot of these same things. So we do hymns from Ambleside Online. I just take their list, create a playlist on Spotify. So if you're on Spotify, I think you can actually search my name, Lindsay Day, Lindsey, Day, D-A-Y. I think you might be able to actually search me and find I think you can find my playlist. So if you're interested in any of this, you might find that on there. I just take the annual hymn list and make, right now we have a 2025-2026 hymn study playlist. And we just listen to it, sing it. It just helps us learn it, to be hearing it every, so often. Then I do the exact same thing for the Ambleside Online folk songs. I have a playlist, 2025, 2026 playlist for our folk songs. Then I have a playlist for our church songs. And I just so I should say that too. I have this as a note in my phone called Car School, and it has the little circle bubble that you fill in. So every time we complete one of the things, I just, pop it and then go to the next one, mark it off. So that way, that's how I kind of keep track of where we are on my loop list here. And then once we go through the whole thing, we start over. And I just created the list in the order that the idea came to my mind. So there's no rhyme or reason to the order that we do these things. It's just when I thought, hey, I should add that to our loop of Car School things. So next is church songs, and that is a playlist that I'm constantly adding to, but it's pretty short because we go through it slowly. Again, this is part of something that we do as part of our morning basket time. It is songs that I hear in church that I want my kids to learn. This started because when my kids were younger, and even my kindergartner now, I wanted them to be able to sing along in church without having to keep up with the reading on the screen. And so I knew it would be easier if they just memorized the songs. And so I just slowly started adding songs in for them to listen to and memorize. And it totally worked. Just playing the music, you start to memorize it. Then I discovered a podcast, which we started mixing in some podcasts that my kids really enjoy. The first one is Real Cool History for Kids. That is probably going to be my most highly recommended podcast. It is short little tidbit stories from history from a Christian woman who adds a Christian worldview to it. And there's I'm not sure, I think she just picks and chooses. It's not like it starts at a certain point in history and works its way through. So if you were studying something specific, you might want to scan the list and look for it, or you might just do what we're doing and enjoy a wide feast of things and let the kids make their own connections, where you're just randomly listening to it in order and hearing different stories from throughout different points in history. I've really enjoyed that. And even recently, there was one that we listened to about slavery, and she did a really good job of introducing the subject of slavery and explaining it. And I don't know, I really like that podcast. Then I added on our playlist that we've had since my kids were little. I call it Babe songs. I think my playlist might actually be called Babes, something like that. And it's a long playlist, there's a lot on there, but it's a lot of nursery rhymes and kid music, some like psalms set to music, basically anything over the years there's probably a lot of Blippi on there, anything like that my kids enjoyed or that I wanted them to learn, I added to that playlist. Now, my kids are starting to get kind of old for a lot of that. So then I made a playlist called Man in Training Songs. And I got that phrase, I think, from John Tyson. It is essentially like these kids who are not yet men, but who are becoming men. He calls them man in training, or men in training. And I have a playlist called Man in Training, and it is more, not so much like the nursery rhyme songs, but more of the like manly, aspiring to be manly type songs. It's not very long at this point. There are not a lot of songs that I've thought I would definitely add to this list. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Then I have our composer playlist, that changes every year. Currently, we're studying Mozart. So we will listen to, this is based on our Simply Charlotte Mason composer study. So that's how I choose the pieces that'll be on that playlist. And as we study it, I add each new song that we're learning of his. And we just listen to that. And then I have a playlist of our catechism songs. I talked about this also. I talked about all of these things before. So this is, you can see why listening to it in the car, like we don't usually listen to that stuff at home, but we spend a lot of time in the car, and so that's when I like to play that type of stuff. So our catechism songs, and then I have a few more podcasts. The next one is Tiny Theologians. I feel like this one's really popular in the homeschool Christian community world, especially if you have little kids. It's a really cute podcast of a family acting out different scenarios, and they're learning about God. So that's cute. And then the Way the World Works podcast, that's next on my list. That is produced by the same people that put out Tuttle Twins. So it's neat. I am still not sure. I think it's meant for kids, but they talk about some really higher level things that'll make you think, like government rules and stuff like that, but it is done well. So it's not, I wouldn't say that's like for little kids, but my 8-year-old really enjoys it, and there have been a lot of good discussions that have come up as we've listened to that podcast. Then I have another playlist. I call it Memory Work, and it's just the songs. It's a lot of songs that I actually had in my Babes playlist that they weren't hearing very often because that playlist is so large, and it's ones that I really want them to put in their memory, have in their memory. So things like a song of the books of the Bible, or the Pledge of Allegiance, the planets, stuff like that, 10 Commandments, just things that I want them to have memorized. And I don't know, so like my Babe playlist, for example, it's like hours long. I'll just put that on for like a 20-minute car drive. The Memory Work one, we listen to the entire thing before we move on to the next thing. And there's a few different things like that. If you have questions, let me know. I can tell you if it's just for a car ride length thing, or if it's we're gonna listen to it in its entirety type of thing. And then I have 2 more podcasts that we just started, so I can't really say if I recommend them quite yet, but the first one is Who Smarted. So far, it's been really fun, high production level, and it's very scientific and in a really fun way teaches different things to the kids. And then the second one is the Laugh Daily podcast. If you're familiar with Jay Stu on YouTube, we really like them. It's a group of Christian guys out in Colorado that basically just make funny videos, and they have this podcast called Laugh Daily. We're only a couple into it so far. They've been pretty goofy, but it's an older podcast, and we start at the beginning, so I have high hopes that it gets a little bit better, but we'll see. So they're fun, they're silly and goofy anyway, so it's kind of what I expected, but we're enjoying it. So that is what our car school has looked like lately. I would love to know what types of things you listen to in your car rides, if there are any audiobooks that you've really enjoyed recently, or any, specific categories of things like this that you do. So, or any podcasts. I'm always open to more podcast recommendations. All right, hope you are having a great week, and I will talk to you soon.